welcome back to AV training from Faith Baptist Church. If you watched the other one, it's welcome back. This is part 2. We already talked about in-house sound and the projection computer earlier, and now we're on to the live streaming setup itself. So this is the operator who's going to control the sound and the video inputs for the live stream and the recordings for people who can access it online, as well as controlling the camera. So basically, this is your setup. I've already turned the computer on, but the power button's over there. And then we're going to get comfy and take a look at some different things over here. So I'm going to transition to the tripod. All right, so I've got the tripod going just to make this a little simpler. So in order to get everything up and running, there's a few pieces of software you're going to open off the top. So first of all, this one here, the kind of the black circle thingy, is OBS. So OBS is the broadcast software that we use. It's going to control what the goes out to the live stream, starting the live stream, recording, and all that good stuff. The next piece, I'm going over here, the little camera icon down here. That would be our camera control software. So I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to switch it into advanced view just to show some of the extra stuff. And so you can see here the image in OBS. This is coming from our camera in the room. And I can, I'm going to go Faith Main. That's the name of our camera. Boop, press that. And now it should let me, there we go. Now I'm controlling the camera with these buttons going back and forth, up and down. I can say home and it'll go back to its kind of default. And over here, we've set up some specific shots so that you don't have to always go back and forth. You can just pick between them. So this is the wide shot, which just kind of gives us, a basic view of making sure it gets the whole stage. And what I call the pulpit wide shot, which gives you, a little bit, the pulpit and a little bit more, and then a little bit closer in. So this would be a shot of kind of the preacher preaching. There might be some other shots we might want. We might want, one that's just this half of the stage focused in on, the worship team specifically, for instance. And so maybe we put that there. And then if we want to keep this as a shot we can go back to, then we can go over here and press the set button. I can tell set number 4, and I can say, stage right. Okay, and now I can bounce between that. I can go take me back to the wide shot, take me over to stage right. Using the advanced mode, you can also change some things. Over here, you can change the speed at which the camera pans or tilts or zoom or focuses or zooms when you use these buttons. So there's also buttons here that control just how bright and how much contrast you've got, and even the hue as far as the color. So I can make it green, I can make it really pink. I don't want to do either of those things. Going to put it in the middle. So there's a few other settings that we can work with. So, but that's at the moment, what we've got is working out pretty well. So now we've got that going. So that's really most of what you need to know about the camera. The only other thing to say about it is really that less camera movement is usually better. Using the presets is a little less clumsy. If you go like this, wait back here, hang on. That's not going to look as good on the live stream. Because there's only one camera, it's usually best to stick with very, long shots, not a lot of movement. But if you do have something like the worship team doing a long set, then you might occasionally bounce back and forth between, okay, I want here's the wide shot so people can see the whole room a little bit. I'll let them play for a minute. Maybe now I'll dig down into the stage right type shot and just close in on them a little. But our goal is not to do more camera work than we really need to, because that tends to be distracting. All right, so that's the video side. Now, OBS has quite a few different options, and this may be more than you need to know in some ways, what I'm about to show you. But we're going to set a couple things up to show you how OBS works. So, right at the moment, I've only got, this is called, this is the source list for this scene. Where are the scenes? Okay, so right now, the way this is set up, okay, I want to have room for that. So you can rearrange the boxes in OBS so you can see the different things, which I've just done, so I can have the scene list. So I'm going to rename this one I'm just going to call this live view. So this is the scene that's just, it's basically the default scene. It's got the camera, which is the ATEM input, and it's got the audio input coming in also from the ATEM Mini, which is this little guy right over here, which is our production switcher. So it's got inputs for multiple things and all kinds of buttons. Now, you probably won't interact with the physical buttons quite so much, though. Most likely, we will be doing that over here with software. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to bring up the next guy. So this is the control software for the ATEM. Or at least it would be if it would turn on. There we go. So it's turning on, it's finding the switcher. So now we kind of have a computerized version of what we were seeing before. I'm going to raise the tripod up just a titch, so you can see that whole monitor. Okay, so when we're in here, there's a few different things that we can do. For one thing, we can control which camera we're looking at. Now, we only have two. We have we only have one camera, but we also have the input from the other computer. So over here where it says camera 4, if I switch to it, all of a sudden, my view becomes the slide from the other computer, same one that's up on the screen. Same thing would happen if I used it on the production switcher. See, it's gone to number 4. I can switch it back to number 1. Now it's the camera view, but the screen is still the same. So 4, 1. So you're doing the same thing over here as there. If I switch it to 1, then that's what happens. I can also, using this preview mode here, do it a little more gently with an actual transition. So if I say, okay, I'm in 4, I want to go to 1, and then I can go over and hit auto here, and then it's going to, more smoothly switch from one to the other. So that's a little cleaner. You can also use this big cool bar here and go and switch between them, or go halfway in between, or switch between them to fade as quickly as you want. That's bonus stuff. We really just want to make sure people are seeing the right thing, but you have those options. The other thing about this control software that's really quite important is this area right here. That's called the DSK, or the Downstream Key. So right now it is off, and we have our normal view. But over on the other computer, when we have, let's say, a scripture reading going on, we can superimpose the words from that onto this screen so that we can see the scripture reader and what they're reading on the live stream and in the recording. But to do that, right now it's not there. We need to activate the DSK over here, the Downstream Key. So if I hit on air or if I hit auto to get it to fade in, either way, it'll appear. And so now the words are there. And as the other computer operator changes them, they will change for us so that people can see them. So that's true for scripture readings, and that's true for music. Whoops, sorry, bumped the tripod. So one big thing to remember is anytime that we've got music or we've got a scripture reading, you need to remember to turn the DSK on. And then, of course, when we're done with that, we want to turn it off. Otherwise, we get some weird stuff that can happen, like pictures or videos trying to come over. So that's the DSK. Back to talking quickly about switching between cameras. The other reason we would do that would be if we were playing a movie from the other computer, for instance. And so at that point, you're going to want to coordinate with the other computer operator and be ready, switch over to the camera view, and before he or she activates that movie, so that it's not cut off for those on the live stream. So you don't have to be the one who physically plays the movie. You just have to switch over to the other computer input, and then that'll just get piped over to you. One other thing you might want to switch between cameras for might be if there's a slideshow to go with the sermon. So if that's the case, there might be a quote on there or a picture that might be nice to switch to. So you'd cut away from the view of the preacher and just show their slide for a moment, long enough for a person to read that quote or take a look at the picture and then bounce back. And that's going to be kind of at your discretion. You may not want to do that with every slide because that could get really distracting. But if there's an appropriate, some appropriate times, then that will be a useful thing for you to do back here. So now back to OBS for a second. So we have our live view. That's just the camera and the audio input. But we might want to set up some other scenes. In fact, I do want to set up some other scenes, and this will help maybe show you a couple things about how that works. So to make a new scene is a collection of sources. It adds more things. So for instance, the live view has the 2 sources. I'm going to add a new one. So I'm going to go to the plus down here, and I'm going to say, okay, I want to add an image. You have a lot of different options. And I'm going to say, I'm going to call it logo. And let's bring it up. So I'm going to browse, and I'm going to go into Dropbox, where we have our Faith Baptist files. Oops, I want to rename it. I want to go into it. And we have, you don't have to worry about all this, where I'm finding stuff, but I think go into the publicity and branding folder, logos, and I'm going to grab this color logo here. And that one doesn't have a background, so that's not actually the one I want. I'm going to try that again. Oop. So get rid of that logo. I'm going to go and add image. Call it logo. Again. Browse. And I'm going to go back to publicity and branding. And I'm going to not use the higher res one. I'm going to use this banner one here. Okay. There we go. So now that's here. So here's now I've added this into the scene. And I can move it wherever I want. I can make it bigger. I can make it smaller. Ooh, apparently I can mirror it, which I did not mean to do. How do I undo that? Okay, apparently you can do that too. Don't do that. I'm going to put it down in the corner here just for our stream, and then boom, look, we're a little bit more legit now because we've got our name down there. So that's all I want to do in this scene, but I can switch to a whole other scene here. So I'm going to call this one the congregational prayer. Actually, I'm going to take the live view screen. So I'm not going to make a new slide. I'm going to right click on live view, and I'm going to duplicate it because I want some of the same inputs. So now we're going to rename it congregational prayer. This saves you from having to add the camera back in and add everything back in, because it's going to have a lot of the same stuff. But we're going to add one more thing. So over here, new source, and again, an image. And I'm going to call this prayer line. Okay, and now I'm going to go to the right folder. So in our Dropbox, which you can find on the side, hang on, Dropbox, there we go. Faith Baptist Multimedia folder, there's online service graphics. That's the main place you're going to find stuff, unlike with the logos. So here's my prayer line graphic. I'm going to open that up. I'm going to add it in. So I'm going to make, so I can change the sizes. So over in sources here, the one at the top is the one that's in front of everything else. So I don't want prayer line on the top. I actually want it on the bottom because I'm going to make it the background. So now I'm going to keep the video here and prayer line there. So when someone is giving the congregational prayer now, we can go to the congregational prayer scene, and then in the background it'll have people this invitation to send prayer requests, and then we're gonna zoom this in on, and we'll still be able to see the person. So we'll zoom it in on the microphone that they are in front of. Maybe I zoom it in on them a bit. And there we go. It's a slightly different scene. It breaks it up. It tells people where we are in the service. And it kind of adds a little extra flavor to things. So I'm going to do something similar again. And I'm just going to duplicate the live view. And I'm going to call this one Scripture. And I'm going to keep all these same inputs. And again, I'm just going to add another image. Scripture reading. Because I named the scene Scripture reading, so I can't name this image that. Okay, we'll just call it Scripture. And I've got an image that's already here. Okay, great. I'm going to add that in. And okay to that. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to throw that in this top right corner. So now maybe it's at the same microphone, or maybe they're over at the pulpit. But either way, I'm just gonna have that up there so that for this section of the service, when they're doing the main scripture reading for the day, you'll have that. And you may need to adjust the camera a little bit because maybe someone's head is, you know, a little bit covered by that. So you just, you know, maybe just, whoops, slide that over just a touch, or bring it up just a touch so that they're not being covered over by it. But again, this adds a little bit for the video. So these are the kinds of things you can do. You can make as many scenes as you want. They're just collections of different sources, and that lets you do some things. In fact, we're going to add one last scene here, which is we're going to call offering. And this is just something to play at the very end. So there's no sources for this because I've added a new scene, and that's fine. I don't want any other sources. So instead of an image, this time I'm going to add a video. Actually, media source rather than video separately. We're going to call this offering video. And browse, and here it is, offering clip. It's already here because we were using it before. And so what do we want to do? Do I want it to loop? Yes, I do. So it doesn't stop. Do I want it to restart? Sure. And show nothing with playback ends. Okay, so we've got that in there. So this is just the offering slide, and it comes with music as well. And so, you know, as the service is ending, the pastor's walking up, you switch to this for 30 seconds, 45 seconds, something like that, before just piping over to the other computer to pick up the announcement loop from there. Just because obviously those online can't give their offering, so that's what we can do. There's also the option to use it while the actual offering is being taken up during the service, so that's that could be a place where you use that as well. So that's the main stuff from OBS. You're going to be having the right scene, control the camera so that it looks the way you want. The other thing to talk about is audio. So here's some headphones. Whoops. Got some headphones down here, which are plugged in. I'm going to unplug them because they're noise canceling, so they need batteries. And so when you put these on, you can hear the OBS output, or you can hear what's going to the live stream. And here's the audio input source. So that's over here. It's called ATEM. There's a whole bunch of different ones, potential audio sources, but I've turned them off except for this ATEM one because it's the only one we care about. Now you can, there's a little, the little settings button here, over here, and you can go to something called advanced audio properties, which can be very helpful. So first of all, it's been set to mono, which is important. Otherwise, you'll only hear the service in one ear of the headphones. Oh, hang on. I don't think I wanted. Yeah, I do want audio input capture to be active. Okay. Sorry about that. Audio input capture is a key one we want. So we go into it, audio input capture. So you notice I've given this what's called a sync offset. That's not super important. It just slows down the audio so that it matches with the video, so that people's mouths and the words seem to be going in place. But here's an important button, audio and output. So monitor and output. So you can turn it off or you can turn it on. So when it's on, when it says monitor and output, now whatever sound is coming to the stream from the soundboard is going to go into these headphones. So that's super helpful. And I've seen a lot of times issues where I've changed something or I've adjusted something and all of a sudden I didn't have any sound in the headphones. And the solution has always been go in here, turn it off, turn it back on. So if you're not getting sound and you're not sure why, that is probably the ticket. So you'll be able to hear this. Now, when there's actually sound happening, it's going to come through. You're going to be able to see some action over there. So I'll pop over to the other computer for a second. All right, so on the other computer, I've started a video, and it has sound. And we can see over here that there's sound happening from that. And if I turn on the headphones, I should also be able to hear it, We have the headphones are Bluetooth enabled, but we've got an audio cable for them as well, which I generally prefer to use because the Bluetooth can be a little unreliable at times. So I'm gonna throw that in there. So in the headphones, I can now hear this, which is great, which means it's working. And you can get a visual clue as to how much you're outputting over here. So if it's bumping into the red, we've got a problem. We're gonna wanna turn our input down. You can turn this down, but it turns down everything. So you can use that, but probably better to go over to the soundboard and figure out, you know, if it's too loud, where's that coming from? So I'm gonna pop off the tripod for a second and go over here. So right now it's coming from the computer sound channel, and the audio output is controlled by this blue line, all these blue buttons here. See the record mix. So that's where you're getting all your audio into the stream onto your computer. So this is the computer sound channel number 16. It's the only one that's on, and there it is. So if it was too loud, if I was getting red or if it was sounding distorted, then I would turn this down. And I can turn it way down if I want. And then I look over here and I say, okay, well, look how much lower that got. Now, if it's down there, that's pretty soft. As a general rule, you're gonna want it toward the very top of the green, or sometimes bumping into the yellow. Although that can depend a little bit on what kind of source it is. Basically, you want to listen to it and make sure it's at a good volume and that it's a consistent volume. So ideally, you want each speaker, each musician, or each everything that's happening in the service to be similar in volume. So that's something we're going to be testing when there's rehearsal going on and when people are testing mics, just trying to calibrate that to make sure that there's some consistency there. When it comes to sound, we've also got a tool over here. So we're on the switcher right now. We're going to go over to audio, and now we've got mic 1 is the only one that's the input from the soundboard. So for one thing, another thing that can sometimes go wrong is if for some reason this has been turned off, you will be getting no sound, and there's no way you can fix that. So that has to be on for this to work out. And then we can look over here and say, okay, where's this landing? And we can turn up the master here, we can turn it up here, we can change it up here as well. Now, it should be reasonably well calibrated. You shouldn't have to mess with that a whole lot. But if for some reason it was way too soft and nothing you did on the other soundboard was able to solve it, well, maybe someone's turned this too far down, or they've turned the master too far down. That might be a way to get it back. Or if, again, it's the same thing. If everything is way too loud and you're turning it down a lot on the soundboard, but that's not helping, then over here might be where you need to look to sort that out. So that's another thing we've got. The switcher and the audio. Those are the only two you really have to worry about over in the control software. So a big part of what you're going to be doing during rehearsal time when you come in is listening in the headphones to the worship team rehearsal and anyone who's testing the microphones. You want to try to get things balanced as best you can. Now, you should be walking into a good situation and you will have help if you need it. But the big thing that probably will take the most practice is calibrating the sound. You're in control of the sound that goes to the live stream. The good news is nothing you do screws up the sound in the room or changes the worship team's rehearsal or what they can hear on stage. So you don't have to worry about that. But we do want to get decent sound out to the live stream. So that may mean taking a look at the different channels, using the piece of paper that will be there that tells you who's singing into what mics or playing into what mics, and then making adjustments to those specific channels, making sure that I can hear the lead singer the best, and all the singers above the level of the instruments, and the instruments in reasonable balance so that nothing is way louder than something else. Again, this is where it becomes more of an art than a science, especially if you have a musical ear. But you just want to kind of listen to that, tweak it as best you can, maybe ask someone else to listen to it and get some help or some suggestions. And we just do our best to put the best sound out that reflects what's in the room and what's going to sound good for those who are viewing. So that is the audio. So you can make different adjustments here and here. If for whatever reason one of those channels, like if you turn it all the way up and it's still way too soft to hear properly, then probably we're going to need to go up to the red master gain at the top and turn that up more. But maybe ask or coordinate with the other AV worker, because if you change the red dials, the master volume controls, then that changes the sound in the room. It makes it louder overall. So they'll have to maybe adjust by turning down one of these sliders or something else. So it starts to tweak everything else. But from week to week, as long as nothing gets real messed up, everything should be pretty close to where it needs to be, and you will just be tweaking. So I think those are the main things that I really want to bring you for this. The only other thing to quickly get into is the actual live stream control. So I'm going to bring up Firefox over here, and we'll set up the window. And we will get Faith Baptist Church going and take us to YouTube, please. So over to YouTube. And not just YouTube, but YouTube Studio. And then we have over here the Go Live button. So now we are into our live stream control stuff. So we'll get a test stream queued up. I'll make it full screen. Test screen queued up, private, so now I can also see it great. So this is where you can monitor the live stream. Now, at the moment, it's controlled through OBS over here. So OBS will already have the stream. So this is called the stream key. Can be very important. It needs to be the same as what's loaded into OBS. So if I go over to OBS, this is already set correctly now, but if it wasn't, I would go over and I would copy the stream key. I would go into settings in OBS, and I would go to stream, and I would paste that stream key right into here, or even show it and make sure, okay, it ends with CPCK. Is that what it ends with over here? CPCK. Okay, good. We've got the same one, so this is probably going to work then. The other settings in OBS, you shouldn't have to worry about. They should be in good shape already. As far as the settings, but these are the kinds of things that have to get messed with if anything goes wrong. So hang on, I'm just going to switch. Okay, yeah, I'm going to switch that to. No, this was a little messed up before, but we'll put it on 60 and just see what happens. I'm stress testing the computer a little bit. So. Yeah, you have options for the stream, the outputs, and the audio, and some other things that you only need to get into if we have problems. So now that, assuming the stream key is correct, to get things started, we're just going to go over here and hit Start Streaming. And when you hit Start Streaming, it will also start recording automatically because those are linked, or at least they're supposed to be. Okay, they're not, because I didn't link them yet. So I will, but if you should double check, because we also want to be recording the service too. So now that we've got those both going, if we look over here, we see that the stream has started. We've got that happening. And we can see it in there. And we might want to look at certain things like stream health and see. You can also get a view of stream health in the buttons down here on OBS, where it can say, okay, what are we seeing? Dropped frames, CPU usage, and frames per second, and all these kinds of things. At the moment, everything looks fantastic. No dropping frames. It's not using much hardware. The computer is more than powerful enough to handle this. I'm going to hit number 4 over on OBS. I'm going to switch to the video. And when we go over here, we will eventually see that pop over too. So now it's directly just playing the video from the other computer. And it's not breaking a sweat doing any of that either. So that's great. When all is over and it's time to stop, we're going to hit stop recording. Okay, and the recording will automatically find its way into the OBS recordings folder, which is, oh, the camera is complaining that the camera has fallen asleep, but that's fine. We don't need to worry about that. OBS recording folder, all the recordings will appear in there afterward. And then I'm going to say, okay, we're done the stream. We're going to stop streaming. Great. And when we go over here, eventually it will just stop working because it's not getting a stream, but we can also just go up and hit end stream here and make it official and end. And of course it's saving it as something old because it's not set up for this week, but that will already be in place before you get here, because we'll have publicized the stream and this kind of thing. So you won't have to set the stream up from scratch. It'll already be ready to go. Okay, wow, this turned into a long video, so I hope that's helpful in giving you a sense of what you're up to when you get in here. I'm going to leave it there for now, and just say thanks again for taking this on. It's not as complicated as I just probably made it seem, but hopefully this gives you a base to work from, and thank you for being willing to help with this area of ministry.